Good afternoon, audience members. We're so happy that you're tuning into our session today. I am Josalyn Filkins, EdTech Specialist with Solution Tree, and I have one of our incredible authors with us today, Tom Driscoll. And today we're going to be speaking about one, his book, Becoming Active Citizens, two, the session at FETC, which I know everybody is excited to see and attend. And the third thing is we're going to talk a little bit more around Solution Tree EdTech services and our learning platform, Global PD for Teams. So let's dive right in. Tom, how are you today?
Great. How are you, Jocelyn?
Wonderful. Thank you for asking. So, your session at the FETC, which is Next Level PBL, Enhancing Project Based Learning with EdTech. Awesome. So, why do you think this is such a critical session for us right now in this moment?
Well, I think part of the reason is because over the pandemic years, which is crazy to even think about, it was years long, but I think part of the shift we had to do to online learning was in some ways kind of a shift back to more traditional approaches to instruction, just
Mhm.
because it was the only manageable way for a lot of people to do it.
Yeah.
However, now that we're back into somewhat normalcy, I think it's a good opportunity to start exploring more active inquiry, project-based ways to teach in general. And really, our expertise at EdTech Teacher is, how do we amplify how powerful instruction with technology? So the session's about not just doing PBL well, which a lot of folks know how to do, but then how do we amplify the power of it using EdTech tools and strategies?
Awesome. So what can our session, what can our audience members expect when they attend your session walking away with? What are some things they're going to really walk away with from your session?
Right. So what we do with PBL workshops is we typically start with kind of the overview, the what and the why of it, but then the real practical takeaway is during the different phases of a PBL unit or project, we demonstrate specific strategies and tools paired with those strategies that they can use and implement at those phases. So for instance, if you're doing an initial inquiry hook,
Yeah.
and having kids brainstorm some possible ideas, there are certain tech tools that match up with those particular actions. Or if you jump more towards the end of a project where it's about, designing a presentation or a final product and sharing with others, that's a totally different suite of ed tech tools that you could leverage for that. So like Adobe Express, for instance, would be a great tool for graphic design and videos and websites where you wouldn't necessarily lead with that, but that would be one to use towards the end. So we're hoping that all people will come away from this, not just with a better understanding of PBL, but also specific ways that technology can make it a more powerful experience for kids.
I love that. And I'm sure our audience members are really excited to see that session. So I want to speak more to your book, Becoming Active Citizens. I know that was published in June 2022, so recently published.
Mhm.
And, how did you come up with the idea for that book?
Well, myself and my co-author Sean McCusker, who's an ed tech teacher colleague, we were both civics teachers. We both loved the content, and we both felt that civics was sidelined for a long time. And really starting back in around 2003 to 2005, it really got phased out of schools for a variety of reasons. And we were like, it,
True.
it kind of made us angry because we were also taking a look at the state of our democracy and things aren't going too well, right? So
Yeah.
we started to think about how can we have somewhat of an impact on that. So we're like, how can we take our expertise in civics instruction as well as our expertise in ed tech and innovative teaching and create a guide for teachers that want to ramp up civics instruction? Well, part of it's also promoting teaching civics at all, right? Because we feel
That
like
that's true.
right. So a lot of schools are, and a lot of states are starting to teach more civics. So, for instance, Massachusetts, Illinois, Florida, Rhode Island have a lot of new legislation that actually requires civics instruction, which is a great sign.
Mhm.
So, what we started to do is compile research. We met with our acquisition editor at Solution Tree. She reached out to us and found our information and said, "Hey, let's turn this into a book for teachers." And we spent years researching and compiling this and putting it together, and we were excited to finally launch it last June. So,
That's so exciting, and I love that. So, it is clear that you have a love for civics. Where did this love for civics come from?
well, part of it was my own experience as a student. One of my teachers, Mark LeBlanc from West Warwick in Rhode Island, he enrolled us in the Center for Civic Education's We the People program. and our school engaged in a mock congressional hearing contest, and we won our states. I know it's Rhode Island, it was a small state, but either way, we won. So we ended up going down to Washington, D.C. for a trip. And it wasn't your typical D.C. trip in high school where you go around just look at monuments. Like we did that too, but we actually went and competed against other states around the country in a mock congressional hearing competition. So that was really my origin moment for getting involved in civics. And I even thought at the beginning, like, oh, I want to become like a senator and get involved with it all. So I was really into it. And then I steered more towards civics education, and I got my degree in teaching social studies, and I was a social studies teacher for 10 years. So that was how I got into it.
And you know what it is? It always starts with, having some impactful educator. Like most origin book stories that from our authors that we have spoken to always say it stemmed from someone developing a love for me in the classroom. And that
Mhm.
lends itself to come full circle right back to what you're really trying to do for teachers as well, which is give them tools to really instill a love for learning and create a more robust experience for kids. And so I know that you speak to using tech and really making sure that tech is at the forefront of the educational experience in the classroom. But you have a really interesting approach as well. It's not just about the tech. You speak more to how do we develop a stronger teaching pedagogy? How do you make sure that the teaching is solid? I just want to know more around that approach and just your thinking behind how do you marry the two together?
Right. And I think a lot of it is really rooted in instructional design. Right. And there's a reason why there's a merger between ed tech and instructional design is because it needs to work hand in hand.
Mhm.
So for instance, when I explain that experience I had when I was in high school, I didn't explain to you, oh man, I got my love of learning from that flow chart on a piece of paper on how a bill becomes a law. Right. That's the stuff that put me to sleep. But what happens is a lot of times ed tech is layered on top of those boring things, right? So now instead of a piece of paper flow chart and how a bill becomes a law, now it's a Google Doc or now it's a Google slide. It's not any better. It's still boring and dull and disconnected, right? It's just now we use technology for it. So that's where when I hear ed tech get a bad rap, and I'm like, well, how are you using it? Right.
Yes.
So a boring lecture, right, live in class is also a boring flipped instruction video, right? Just because you made a flipped video doesn't make it less boring. So it's more about creating an authentic experience for students and then
Yes.
layering technology on top of that experience to amplify it, right? So we keep coming back to that. It's about good teaching. And that's where I like this PBL session that we're promoting is because it's grounded in authentic experience that excites kids and leads to deeper learning. Then we layer technology into it, right? And that's where I think the true power of technology is. Otherwise, it's really just kind of window dressing on top of poor teaching.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And you kind of just, I would like to speak a little bit more around our ed tech platform, Global PD Teams. And that's exactly what it does. So, Global PD Teams, as you know, we have an incredible learning platform and we offer authentic experiences for teachers to explore instructional strategies. We have our associates and speaking moments and mini snippets. We really create an experience that is one that is bar none and really affords opportunities to explore at people's own, at their own accord. I'm going to